These are the notes from 3-7. The title there is Equations of Lines in the Coordinate Plane. This is all really review stuff that you've already seen once in algebra and covered again in our algebra review packet here in geometry class. So here's the introduction, talking about ski resorts and how steep the slope is in terms of what you would be skiing down. In each one of these drawings there is a number that shows the rise, and there's also a number that shows the run. So the rise is the distance that it goes up and down, the run is the distance that it changes left and right. So we're going to use the ratings here, easiest, intermediate, and difficult, for the ski slopes, to label them so that people who are skiing at the mountain would know which one they would be able to ski down. If they were a skilled skier, maybe they would choose the difficult one. If they were a beginner skier, they would choose the easiest. So just graphically, you can look at these and you can kind of tell which one is the steepest. When I look at these, I look at A and it appears as if that's the steepest slope. So I'm going to assume that that would be our difficult run. Our intermediate run, I see B as being sort of the middle ground, and so I'm going to label that as intermediate. And then C looks like sort of the gentlest slope, so I'm going to assume that that's our easiest. But now let's actually crunch the numbers here to find out if that is the case. The change in height here for A is 1,190 feet. Our change in run, the X distance there, is 3,300 feet. Now I'm going to set up the same ratios here for B and C. This will be 1,180 feet over 3,000. And then C will be 1,150 feet over 3,500. Now it's a little bit hard to compare those fractions, so one thing we could do here is just to divide them. Remember that a fraction bar stands for division, and so when I divide those, I'm going to change it into a decimal answer. So A is 0.40. Now I'm going to divide B. It is 0.39. Now I'll divide C, and it is 0.33. So these numbers really just confirm what the drawing was telling me, that the steepest one, because 0.40 is the largest number, that's going to have the steepest slope. This is our middle number, so it's going to be our intermediate. And then this here is the smallest number, which means that it is the flattest. So remember, higher the number, the steeper the slope. There's our definition of slope. It's the vertical change, the rise, divided by the horizontal change, the run. And so we have a formula here that always allows us to calculate the slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Make sure that you're always using the y's in your numerator and the x's in the denominator. And then graphically here, we call that a slope triangle. And so we can use the slope triangle to help us calculate the run and the rise also, and then that'll give us our fraction that we can use to show what the slope is. So down here, we have a couple of sample questions then to answer. What's the slope of line B? Here's one point in line B. Here's another point in line B. So I'm going to construct a quick slope triangle. And we always start at the left point. So I'm going to start right there. And so when I start at that point, I'm going to notice that I'm going down. I'm going down 4. So because I'm going down 4, I'm going to label my rise as a -4. And I'm going to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to the right 5. So my overall slope for line B would be a -4/5. Now what's the slope of line D? Here's one point on D, and we can just choose any other point here. And so this is a vertical line. My rise, if I start at the point here 4, 0, my rise is 3. It's gone up 3. My run, my change in left and right to get to the next point, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's just gone straight up. And so my denominator there is going to be 0. Anytime you're dividing by 0, if you tried to do that on the calculator, it would say error. You cannot divide by 0, and so in this situation, when we have a vertical line, we'll label the slope as undefined. That's very different than what we would get for the slope of line C. Notice that line C has no rise, but it does have a run. If I started at that point and I moved over to this point, it has a run of 1, 2, 3, 4. And so 0 divided by 4, if I were to find the slope of line C, would be 0. So remember, we're allowed to have 0 as a numerator. We're not allowed to have 0 as a denominator. Those are just general rules there. Remember, we read books from the left to the right. And so if we had a point here on the left, we would rise, we would go up to get to that point on the right. So that's why it has a positive slope. If we start at the left and then we move to the right, we're going down. That's why it's a negative slope. If I start at the left, move to the right, it has not changed at all. So the slope is 0. And then there's the situation that we just discussed. There's no run. It's a vertical line, so it's an undefined slope.